Those were footage recorded from the Hambantota district. Treetops have become home for these villagers at night.
Now, the question is, why do they do it? News First will have all the details on our report on the Gum at the Door-to-Door initiative. This is News First Primetime News. Time now for headlines.
Reconciliation should come from within the people of the country and not through foreign pressure. Statement from the President. Energy experts question the necessity of the Sampur power plant when a number of other countries shut down coal power plants. Sri Lanka to ratify the Ottawa Convention, also known as anti-personal mine ban. A decision by the cabinet. Shooting in Obeyesekarapura kills one.
Before we begin the bulletin tonight, just a reminder to all our viewers, you can join the conversation with News First using the hashtags featured on the bulletin throughout the bulletin today. Our Twitter handle is @newsfirst_EM.
President Maithripala Sirisena emphasized that as people in North and South suffered from terrorism for 26 years, reconciliation must come from the people and not due to inducement that comes internationally. The President was speaking with the Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Elijah C., who paid a courtesy call at the President's official residence today.
President Maithripala Sirisena had noted that whenever the public talks of reconciliation, the international agencies and communities rush to former conflict areas in the north and east, seeking reconciliation among the people. He added that reconciliation must come from the people. Elhaj RC and the President had also discussed programs conducted by IFRC in Vaunia, Mullaitivu, Kilinochchi, Mena and Jaffna. Senior Appellate Court Judge Justice H.N.J. Pereira took oath as a Supreme Court Judge before President Maithripala Sirisena at the Presidential Secretariat.
On to one of our headline stories now. A case filed by 3 families who lost their houses for the construction of the pipeline that is to carry water to the proposed Sampur coal power plant was taken up in court once again today. The complainants note that if they are given an alternative, it needs to be one that is suitable to live in.
A case was filed at the district court by the Muttur Divisional Secretary requesting to evict these people as their lands belong to the state. However, the people know that the lands belong to them. When the case was taken up today, it was further postponed to the 24th of April.
அதற்கும் அவர்கள் வெளியேற தகுந்த காரணம் இருந்தபடியால் வெளியேறவில்லை. எனவே மூதூர் நீதிமன்றத்தின் மூலம் அரச கட்டளைகள் மீளப்பெறுதல் கட்டளை சட்டத்தின் பிரகாரம் விண்ணப்பத்தை செய்து நீதிமன்றத்தின் முன்பாக
The proposed Sampur coal power plant has once again come to the fore following the adverse effects that it poses to the economy and the environment. The project was launched citing that low-cost electricity would be provided by the year 2017 to meet the increasing demand. Sri Lanka's second coal-fired thermal power plant is implemented as a joint venture of Ceylon Electricity Board and National Thermal Power Corporation of India. The joint venture company has been incorporated as Trincomalee Power Company Limited. A power purchase agreement, implementation agreement, BOI agreement, and lease agreement and coal supply agreement was signed for this project. A total estimated cost of the project is $512 million. The project should commence within a year of signing the agreement, and generation of electricity is expected to start in 2018. The power generated will be transmitted to the national grid through high voltage transmission lines from Sampur through Habarana to the Veyangura grid substations. Experts are of the view that at the time when China and the United States have decided to shut down their coal power plants, Sri Lanka going ahead with such a project raises suspicions. Due to the environment and health concerns, many countries across the world are moving away from coal. England has reached a decision to shut down all its coal power plants by 2025. The United States shut down a 4,500 megawatt coal power plant. China shut down a 825 megawatt coal power plant in Beijing. A Ceylon Electricity Board proposed long-term plan to construct 13 coal power plants by 2030 was rejected by the Public Utilities Commission or the PUC. Energy experts point out that emission of coal in power plants releases a plethora of poisonous gas to the environment. They point out that constructing another coal power plant without a proper study on the poisonous gas released from the Noracholi power plant is dangerous. Environmentalists say that the poisonous gas released from the two coal power plants would spread far and wide with the monsoon rains. They add that this would not only pose a threat to the health of the locals in those areas, but would also affect the agriculture in the area.
If you consider where it's being constructed, Trincomalee, that is right in the path of the northeast monsoon. The northeast monsoon winds blow right across the NCP. Already the people of the NCP are suffering because they have bad water. If this happens, there will be clouds of poisonous gases, mostly that contain things like lead, mercury, chromium, cadmium, heavy metals, that will now fall upon these people from the sky. Coal-fired power plants produce huge quantities of acids, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, from the oxides of nitrogen and the oxides of sulfur given out by the coal-fired power plant. These acids form especially when there is moisture in the air. Acid dissolves rock and marble. This acid rain will go over Anuradhapura and it will fall upon the Sri Mahabodhya. Do we as Sri Lankans want to be the generation who has been responsible for the loss of what we have brought with us proudly over the last 2,000 years? None of this has been considered.
When a coal power plant is in operation, a large number of waste is released to the environment that will affect the health of the general public. The ash contains heavy metals. Mercury is hazardous to the human health. Tons of these elements are released when such a power plant is in full operation. Experts believe that when the world is heading towards renewable energy, Sri Lanka must not move towards using coal to generate power. India, which funds the proposed Sampur coal power plant, is currently more focused on generating electricity using wind and solar power. At present, India had gained major success in generating wind and solar energy. We need to obtain that technology. Sri Lanka establishing a coal power plant and having environment issues is not a good thing to do.
The Noracholi Lakvijay coal power plant commences at a cost of $1,306 million. Total capacity 900 megawatts. 300 megawatts released to the national grid under the first phase in 2011. Additional 300 megawatts added to the national grid in the second phase. Audit assessment on the first phase of the Noracholi coal power plant. Power generators at the power plant fail on numerous occasions. On the 22nd of July 2010, a leak in one of the boilers at the plant leaves operations at the plant temporarily dysfunctional. On the 8th of August 2012, a fault in the power lines leaves the power plant in a dysfunctional state. Power plant becomes dysfunctional for a day as the average capacity of the power generation at the plant exceeds 300 megawatts. Power generation at the Noracholi power plant comes to a standstill due to a technical fault. Noracholi Power
Sri Lanka's largest people-oriented campaign, the Newsfirst Gum at the Door-to-Door initiative, marked Day 9 today.
Gum at the Door-to-Door, a national public service initiative.
Mullathev is an area that was cloaked by 3 decades of suffering. The Gum at the Door-to-Door campaign came across many bitter tales from the area. The mother and daughter pictured here are striving to rise on their own despite being affected by the conflict. In 2009, the mother and 3 children were in the wrong place at the wrong time and were in the direct path of a shell attack in Vishwamadu. The mother lost her only son and younger daughter, while the other daughter suffered serious injuries herself. At present, they have been deprived of the Rs 3,000 government allowance and are living amidst many hardships.
සමහර විට දකුණේ අපි යාපනයේ බලන් දෙනවා බොහොම විනෝදී.
Many of us from the south come to Jaffna in trips. The roads have been constructed and we only look at the roads, but we never come deep inside the areas and visit the villages. Some even think that there is no need for them to think about those who are in hardship. However, that is not the case. Does this woman next to me come from a different place? Is she of a different race or culture? No, that is wrong. She is our very own. It is because of the Newsfirst Come at the Door-to-Door campaign that we came across Nishanti. She was able to explain to us her hardships. We report the life story of Nishanti with hope that some relief will be sought to her.
බලධාරීන්ට ඉතින් ඔබේ සිත් උණු වෙන අපේ රටේ අය ඇත්තෝනේ. ඉතින් අපි හැමෝටම මේ පිළිබඳව නිශාන්තිගේ මේ දුක් පුවත ඉතාමත්ම සංවේදීව අපි කියනවා.
Two local residents from the Kegol district moved to Kilinochchi district in the year of 2012. Following the war, their beautiful home here in Kilinochchi were destroyed, and now they live in these man-made huts in dire conditions with no water and electricity facilities. All they ask is the government providing them sufficient funding and government subsidies so that they can get on with their day-to-day activities.
The locals from Mannam Keni in Pachalimpalli are those who are yet displaced by the war. These people lost everything, but their lives were just given 25,000 rupees to build a house, which was only adequate to purchase cement and several steel sheets. Though they are the recipients of a tent provided by an international organization and live in a house built on 25,000 rupees, their major concern is access to drinking water.
Is the rural village of Vaniakani north here at Kilinochchi. Well, this was an area which was also severely affected by the war, which has left many of these locals displaced. When we questioned the locals, especially the children, they told us that they have not had the opportunity of living under a proper roof. Well, all they ask the government is for them to be provided of a proper house so that they can enjoy the basic necessity of a house which you and I enjoy on a daily basis.
The farmers who provide for the nation reached out to the Newsfirst Come at the Door-to-Door campaign and presented their issues. These people who live right next to the Guruvilla Forest Reserve in Anuradhapura face the constant threat of wild elephants. As a precaution to this, they have set up lime and palmyra trees. However, they call for a permanent measure to protect their crops and their lives. Most of these people engage in farming. However, due to the threat posed by wild elephants, they find it hard to farm in these areas. Now, how will they sort a solution to this issue? However, take a look at this plantation. They have planted both palmyra and lime in zigzag order. Why have you all planted these in such a manner? We planted these because the elephant fence will be out of order, maybe in a year or so. However, these plantations will survive for years to come. Problems faced by these people is not only this. They face several other hardships such as the lack of proper infrastructure. In 2012, the Isura Dahara water system was launched to provide relief to the 3 villages that were facing a drinking water issue. However, the water that is provided to the 570 families across a number of villages is different of what is provided to others. This is the water that comes from the Isuru Dahara. This is the water that these people in the area had to consume from the year 2012. The villagers do not know the reason for this issue. However, even if they like it or not, they have to consume this water. This is the water that these residents have to consume. I make a request from the relevant officials in concern to drink a sip of this water. One Newsfirst team in the southern province reached out to the villagers of Kirinda Siriyagama, Surya Palana and Kon Palana. When Newsfirst visited the Kon Palana village, the locals raised their issues surrounding the illegal sand mining taking place in the Kirindi Oya. Locals say that erosion is not the only issue, adding that sand mining also creates a safe haven for alligators to breed. A month ago, a villager fell prey to an alligator.
මෙහි හිටිය අම්මා තමයි නැති උනේ නාන්න ගිහිල්ලා. නාන්න ගිහිල්ලා කිඹුලා අරගෙන ගිහින් තියෙනවා. වැලි කූඩයක්වත් ගොඩ දාපු මිනිහෙක් ඇල්ලුවා නම් කමක් නැහැ.
The Newsfirst Come at the Door-to-Door campaign also visited Kurudana in Hambantota, where the locals are facing a plethora of issues. The village of Kurudana, home to around 50 families, face the primary issue of the lack of electricity. These plants that have been set up opposite the houses is the only safety measure for these locals against wild elephants. They spend their time during the day at home, while at night they spend the night atop the trees.
Premasiri and his wife Malini live in this small wattle and daub house. But if you think this is the worst of their problems, you're wrong. Because this is not where Premasiri and his wife spend the night. It is up on that tree in a small tree house. The reason for that being the human-elephant conflict that exists here in the village of Kurudana in the Hambantota district.
The Newsfirst Come at the Door-to-Door campaign is supported by the University of Peradeniya and will take place until the 18th of March.
Come at the Door-to-Door, a national public service initiative.
The unparalleled island-wide campaign, Gum at the Door-to-Door. Newsfirst, Sri Lanka's largest and most influential news provider, together with the University of Peradeniya, takes the unprecedented step. Walking from home to home, asking people this one simple question: what would make your life better? From the 24th of February to the 18th of March, covering all 25 districts, ensuring the very last home in each village is covered. A revolutionary campaign with one aim: giving a voice to the voiceless.
You can follow the journey of Come at the Door-to-Door on our Facebook page and Twitter page as well. Moving on with more local news, the Appeals Committee on the Demarcation of Boundaries of Local Government Institutions say that the report on the matter comprises of a plethora of issues. Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Faisal Mustafa notes that once these issues are solved, the local government elections will be held.
The Appeals Committee on the Demarcation of Boundaries of Local Government Institutions, which was appointed, is chaired by Asoka Pires. The committee currently received over 2,000 appeals and have concluded operations pertaining to 6 districts.
We need to consider the population density and the community ratios and ensure that a representation is made based on that ratio. When you look closer, the demarcation of 4,860 areas have not been based on those matters. That is our primary issue. We have no desire to make this beneficial to one single political party. What we need to do is to create the demarcation in a manner that will ensure the people's will is represented. The issue that arises is that this cannot be justified. When we create the new borough or the division, we need to create the demarcation. We need to draw the maps. It will take 3 weeks to compile all and hand over a report to the subject minister. There are around 2,000 appeals. Are you asking me not to accept this? I need some time. I have been asked to find a national solution to this issue. The period of the election is being requested. We hope to have the elections as soon as possible. In 3 months, we have reached 6 districts. We need to complete the task for another 19 districts. I need time to complete this process and I hope to conduct in an expeditious manner. If possible, I would do it tomorrow. The government has no desire to postpone this. This is a practical issue. No matter who brings out an opinion, the decision lies with me. I will do my best to have the elections this year.
Mahinda Deshapriya, the chairman of the National Elections Commission, speaking to reporters, commented on the preparations for the local government polls.
The power of holding the local government elections in a month, 2 months or even a year does not lie with anyone. The Act notes that the Elections Commissioner of the Elections Commission must call for it 6 months before the end of the term of the institutions. There are certain technical and practical flaws in this Act. According to this Act, there is the mixed system, which includes the electorate system and the proportional representation system. For the demarcation, a 5-member committee headed by Jayalath Ravi Dissanayake was appointed. The committee handed over the report on the 19th of June 2015. During this time period, some of the former heads of the local government institutions had gone to the Supreme Court. Based on the court verdict and the committee of Asoka Piris, we can say that the Elections Commission in no way would hold an election on the need of anyone. I can sense that there is an election drawing closer. The reason is because articles are published on social media platforms such as Facebook criticizing the Elections Commissioner when there is an election that is drawing closer.
The cost of the election was also discussed.
We have made the allocations from Parliament through the budget to conduct the local government elections this year. For an election, we usually ask for 3 billion rupees. For this election, the requirement is more because of the voting centres. That cost would be around 3.5 billion rupees. The Elections Commission has made a statement that a sum of money more than any other election will have to be spent for the local government election because of the counting of votes at voting centres. Now, prior to the election, a commission of demarcation of boundaries was established which bears expenses of its own. If you take it as a whole, every breathing citizen in our population has had to bear a cost of 150 to 200 rupees for this election alone. The sole purpose of new proposals ahead of this election is to cut down on the expenses. But they are delaying and postponing this election unnecessarily under the guise of bringing something better than the existing one.
An individual was killed in a shooting that took place this afternoon in the Obesekrapura area in Valikada. The incident follows the shooting that took place yesterday in Dematagoda, injuring an individual known as Dematagoda Chaminda, a suspect in the case over the assassination of Bharata Lakshman Premachandra.
2 gunmen in a motorbike had arrived at this house located down Arunodaya Mawatha in Obesekrapura Valikada and opened fire at an individual who was having lunch.
He was shot once and then he hid himself in the washroom. He was helpless. He shut the door behind him. We also closed the door.
32-year-old Harsha Yasasri, who was seriously injured, was rushed to the National Hospital where he succumbed to his injuries.
He has sustained serious injuries. He was rushed to the intensive care unit and he died while receiving treatment at the operating theatre.
The individuals who carried out the shooting had been wearing full-face helmets. A man came there and parked his bike and walked away. Then he came and went inside the house, and then we heard the sound of shots being fired, and then he came out and got on the bike and left. According to the police, the victim was a resident from Kamurupitiya in Mathura and is a suspect in a number of crimes, including the murder of former Southern Provincial Councillor Danny Hittetiya. He was arrested for illegally possessing a T-56 rifle and was released on bail by the Mathura Magistrates Court last week. Police sources said that the house in Obesekrapura belonged to a female associate of the victim. Police released CCTV footage of the car suspected to be driven by gunmen heading towards the location where they opened fire at a Prisons Department bus last evening in Dematagoda. Chaminda Jayanath, also known as Dematagoda Chaminda, who was in the bus at the time of the shooting, was injured. He is the third suspect in the case over the assassination of late Bharata Lakshman Premachandra. The injured individual is receiving treatment at the National Hospital and has undergone a surgery for the wound sustained in the chest area. Another individual connected to large-scale drug trafficking was arrested yesterday at the Katunayake airport. The suspect is a Pakistani national. The Police Narcotics Bureau said that the suspect had concealed a stash of heroin in his abdomen as pills. The suspect was admitted to the Nigambo hospital where 41 heroin pills weighing 450 grams was retrieved.
Now, Cabinet has decided to ratify the convention banning the use of anti-personnel mines. This is known as the Ottawa Treaty. The decision was elaborated further at the Cabinet media briefing held today.
Through the signing of this convention, Sri Lanka will refrain from manufacturing, storing, transporting and using landmines. Through this treaty, we have also quite willingly made a pledge to the international community that we will destroy all landmine reserves in the country. Also speaking at the media briefing, the Minister of Mass Media commented on the Bill for the Right to Information Act. Just as we stated before, all arrangements for this are in place. We are working towards tabling this historical bill to Parliament next week. Journalists also questioned on the alleged money deposited at foreign banks. The biggest issue we have at hand right now in terms of these foreign accounts is the fact that these foreign accounts are being maintained as a trade in a small country as ours. So when a small country like us requests for details on these accounts, these countries are not obliged to comply. There is no international law which requires them to do so either. So it takes a considerable amount of time to investigate such matters and prove its facts. But we are certain that there is money in these accounts. But if an order is issued to these countries from a more powerful country to issue this to Sri Lanka on our behalf, they would definitely comply. So we are making a valiant effort towards this.
The Tissa Maharama Regional Development Committee meeting was held today.
The meeting was held under the auspices of the co-chairs of the Development Committee, Chamal Rajapaksa and Minister Sajid Premadasa. Minister Sajid Premadasa expressed the following views after the meeting.
I have received an invitation to accompany the Honourable Prime Minister on his tour to China. It is a diplomatic tour, and through this tour we hope to commence industrial zones in the Tissa Maharaham electoral division in the Hambantota district. Without political differences, many joined us here today. We hope to hold the next Development Committee meeting with the solutions to a number of issues that were raised here.
Former President Chandrika Kumaratunga says that though women had secured high position in the Sri Lankan government, their percentage remained low in parliament and other elected bodies.
The former president expressed these views during the last session of the Raisina Dialogue 2015, a conclave on geoeconomics and geopolitics in New Delhi.
We have highly educated women, as I said repeatedly, but we have less than 3% members of parliament. The women who become economically empowered, if they are educated or if they come from the higher classes, the privileged classes, then certainly they will liberate themselves and more easily reach the top in their areas and their professions. But take the example of Sri Lanka. The largest foreign exchange earners are the women. 3 sectors, but they are terribly oppressed women.
It will come some time.
As the saying goes, the only thing that does not change is change itself.
Now that being said, New Zealanders have begun voting in the second stage of a referendum on whether to change their national flag.
They have until the 24th of March to send in a postal ballot choosing between the current flag and an alternative called Silver Fern, which won a previous vote. The exercise has been controversial, with many criticizing the hefty price tag and shortlisted designs. Prime Minister John Key says the current one looks too similar to Australia's and it is time to remove the Union flag emblem. In an exclusive interview with Newsfirst during his visit to Sri Lanka, Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key, expressed further views regarding the referendum to change the country's national flag.
If you look at the Sri Lankan flag, you fly it proudly everywhere. I mean, you have to be in your country for 5 minutes and you see your flag everywhere. In New Zealand, I think we don't use our flag in the way that other countries do, in the way that you do, in the way that, for instance, India does, or in the way that America or the United Kingdom use their flag, or Canada. And so I think New Zealand should change to have the Silver Fern, which is much more reflective of who we are and more inclusive of what is now a very multicultural society. Change is always difficult, so it's not to say it's impossible, but it's quite a battle to get there. I think if New Zealanders sit there and think about it, they'll vote for change. But we're the first country ever in the world to ask its population whether it wants to change its flag. Normally countries just get up and do it.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Ramesh Irukal.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant night.